Imagine with me for a second, if you will, you have been on a hike in the Columbia River Gorge, perhaps gone up Volcano Falls Trail for some time away from the busyness in your life. However, you have failed to take some basic precautions, such as appropriate clothing and basic supplies. The hike took longer than you expected, and it is now dark. In your haste to get back to the trailhead, you have slipped and fallen. You now find yourself at the base of a cliff with a broken leg. Search and rescue volunteers will be dispatched to locate you within a couple of hours. However, their search efforts will be hindered by communication challenges. The purpose of this presentation is to introduce you to some of what those challenges are and what is being done to mitigate them. On May 12, 1986, 15 high school students and 4 adults set off from Timberline Lodge at 2 a.m. to climb the south face of Mount Hood. This was to be their final exam for a class known as Base Camp. Around 4 p.m., everything went horribly wrong. Sneaker clouds from the west face shrouded the entire top of the mountain, and the temperature dropped to 50 below zero. There was no visibility. At 12:25 a.m. the next morning, the first searchers were activated. At 5 a.m., the first search team was fully ready, but unable to search due to weather. All search attempts on the 13th were unsuccessful, and throughout the next 2 days, hope wavered of ever finding the group. Late in the afternoon of the 15th, pararescue searchers hit the equipment cache with a probe. Subsequently, the 13 remaining climbers were found, but only 2 still had signs of life. Out of the 19 initial climbers, 5 went back early, and only 2 survived in the snow cave. As you can probably guess, this search took a toll on many people, searchers included. Many vented frustrations about how the search went. Hindrances they faced were not only the adverse weather and mountain conditions, but also lack of interoperability. Multiple agencies came from all over Washington and Oregon, as well as military and law enforcement personnel. Every agency had their own communication plan and radio frequencies. There was little overlap. This meant search teams from different agencies had a difficult time communicating with each other. Many things were learned from this tragedy, including some important things about simplifying interagency communications on large-scale searches. Some of the problems faced on that Mount Hood mission are still faced by searchers today. Even though today there are designated statewide search and rescue frequencies, there is still some lack of interoperability. Another challenge that is faced is the effect of terrain on radio communications. Many searches occur in hills or mountainous terrain, and most SAR radios are very high frequency or VHF. VHF radios rely on line of sight in order to reach another radio. This does not mean you have to be able to see the person you are trying to reach, but you do have to have a clear, straight path. If you are on one side of the mountain or down in a ravine and are trying to reach base on the other side of the mountain, you won't be able to get through. This is solved by having repeater teams. Repeater teams try to get to the highest point they can in order to establish line of sight between them and searchers and them and base. Repeaters are equipped with off-road capable vehicles and at least 2 mobile radios, one UHF ultra-high frequency and one VHF. UHF radios have less range than VHF, but they penetrate buildings better. VHF has the longer range needed to reach teams in the field, while UHF has the power to penetrate the mobile command center at base. Enter Mountain Wave Search and Rescue. Our main focus is providing communication on searches, no matter how large or small. COM-4 is our main command vehicle. It is a retired neonate ambulance that has been outfitted with radios, GPS tracking, 50-foot antenna, computers, mapping, and more. Our main job on searches is to ensure that there is communication between teams in the field and the sheriff's office in charge of the search. We have a dispatcher, logger, and mapper inside. The dispatcher handles all radio communications between base, search teams, plus talks to aircraft or military and 911 dispatchers as needed. There is an average of 16 radios that are able to be used at all times by the dispatcher. Here is a little taste of what dispatching sounds like inside COM-4. In this case, we are discussing an event rather than a search, and the person in charge is not yet at base.
Anyway, so there may be a time that Wheatland Road has to be closed for about 10 minutes to let the runners come out of the park. They want you guys to take care of doing that. And monitor the front gate, so you need a vest on and maybe warning lights on your rig if you have them parked there. They wanted 2 people, so you and Mark are in.
Okay, copy.
So the event starts at 8 a.m. They say that they might have you close it at 8:10 for approximately, 10 minutes to let people out. So the plan is that people come out of the park, go onto Wheatland Road, and they run down to the ferry, then they go back into the park, make loops like that. And the runners will be running against traffic and are supposed to stay in the bike lane.
Copy, yeah. I noticed the entrance road here is not very wide, so it's going to be hard to keep them up against the side.
Did I copy all that correctly?
Logging is another important job. They log all the radio traffic, who said what to whom, search team positions, coordinates of evidence found, who's on which team, and times of everything. Then at the end of a search, we can print out this record and are better able to debrief and learn for next time. The third position in COM-4 is mapping. The mapper logs coordinates of search teams, evidence found, and areas searched. He can also look at 3D topographical maps and help decide where the best places to put repeaters are. This is useful because at the end you can see how thoroughly an area was searched, and you may be able to see the trail of the missing subject by looking at where evidence was found.
Very slowly.
Interagency coordination is another big challenge faced on search missions. Depending on the size of the search, there may be anywhere from 1 or 2 agencies up to dozens. Some local agencies in northwestern Oregon are Portland Mountain Rescue, Northern Oregon Regional Search and Rescue, Pacific Northwest Search and Rescue, Multnomah County Sheriff's Office Search and Rescue, Mountain Wave Emergency Communications, Civil Air Patrol, Hood River Craig Rats, and AMR's Reach and Treat paramedics. This is beside each county's sheriff's office who is in charge of search efforts. There are canine teams, ground searchers, mountain climbers, high-angle rescue teams, water rescue teams, EMTs and paramedics, 4x4 vehicles, quads, and even snowmobiles. Each agency has a role to play to achieve the common goal of having a successful outcome of the search. In order to work together, they have to be able to communicate with each other throughout the search. That's what all the radios, repeaters, GPS units, and cell phones are for. When communication happens, the teams get critical information in a timely manner and are able to relay information to the incident commander in order to enable him to make the best decisions possible. Good communication is vital for many agencies to be able to work together. Terrain is yet another challenge that searchers face. They will tackle almost anything as long as they believe they may find what they're looking for. However, as I mentioned earlier, terrain can wreak havoc on the ability for searchers to communicate well. Hills and mountains affect VHF line of sight. Cold can shorten the battery life in radios and GPS units, meaning that searchers have to carry more weight to keep batteries fresh. Trees and brush can also interfere with the VHF line of sight if the trees are too thick for this radio signal to penetrate. Thick brush can also muffle shouts and hinder the searcher's ability to locate the subject by sound. Metals in rock slides or in an urban setting can interfere with compass needles and may end with the searchers becoming lost. Thick clouds and fog can also affect the GPS's ability to reach satellites. Therefore, base may not be able to track teams or log coordinates of evidence found, or teams may not be able to track themselves and be able to find their way back to base. By now, you might be wondering how much searchers get paid in order to take on these challenges. The truth is, they don't. On a national level, there are no paid search and rescue groups in the United States. That's right. The people taking on and solving these challenges are all volunteers. They spend thousands of dollars of their own money in order to equip themselves properly. They take time off from their jobs, and at times are even fired for taking off. They spend hours training and in classes that they paid for with their own money. They willingly risk their lives and expend their energy in the hopes of helping some stranger who finds himself in a jam. All those radios, GPS units, comm vehicles, repeaters that I talked about, all are paid for either by the searchers, federal grants, or fundraising. So next time you see or hear a search in progress, remember, these are volunteers giving their time and effort, spending hours facing communication challenges, terrain challenges, and personal challenges that most people don't know about in order to help a complete stranger. So take some time to thank a volunteer searcher and donate if you can.